"You need to leave," my sister whispered, smiling for the guests while gripping my arm. "You're not on the list." I stared at her. "I'm your sister." She leaned closer. "Not today." Guests nearby started staring. My own parents avoided my eyes. Then the venue manager walked over holding a clipboard and said, "Ma'am, there's something you need to see. My name is Savannah Brooks. I'm 34 years old. I work as an event logistics coordinator for mid-sized corporate events. If you've ever been to a company retreat or a product launch that ran smoothly, someone like me was behind it. I'm the quiet one. The one checking timelines, confirming vendors, making sure the napkins match the tablecloths. I live in details. I breathe spreadsheets and contingency plans. It's not glamorous, but it's mine." Growing up, though, nobody cared about details. They cared about Lila. My younger sister was the sun in our family, and the rest of us were just supposed to orbit. She was loud, funny, always the center of every room. Teachers loved her. Neighbors adored her. My parents practically glowed when they talked about her. Lila got the birthday parties with themes and decorations. I got a card and a "we'll celebrate later." Later never came. I was the practical one. The one who kept her head down, earned scholarships, worked part-time jobs through college to pay for what financial aid didn't cover. I never asked my parents for money because I learned early that asking led to lectures about how Lila needed braces, or dance lessons, or a new dress for some recital. There was always a reason my needs came second. I stopped competing. I just worked. And honestly, I built something real. My career wasn't flashy, but I understood contracts. I understood negotiations. I could read the fine print on a vendor agreement and spot a liability clause from 3 pages away. That skill set doesn't win you popularity contests at Thanksgiving dinner, but it keeps you safe. Or at least, it's supposed to. When Lila got engaged about a year ago, she called me crying happy tears, and I was genuinely glad for her. When she asked me to help with the wedding logistics, I said yes without hesitation. I spent weeks coordinating with florists, caterers, the DJ, the venue. I built her a master timeline. I negotiated discounts that saved her thousands. I did all of it for free because she was my sister and I thought that meant something. But in the final weeks before the wedding, things shifted. Lila stopped returning my calls. She removed me from the group chat with the bridesmaids. When I asked about my role in the ceremony, she said they were simplifying things. I wasn't a bridesmaid anymore. I wasn't part of the rehearsal dinner. I wasn't even copied on the final seating chart. I felt it in my chest, that slow, familiar ache of being erased. But I told myself it was just wedding stress. I told myself she'd come around. So I pressed my dress, wrapped a gift, and showed up anyway. Because that's what I always did. I showed up for people who never once showed up for me. I wasn't the center of attention. I wasn't the favorite. But I had something they didn't expect. If you've ever been the responsible one while someone else got the applause, you know this feeling. You know what it's like to carry the weight while they carry the trophy. If that's you, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, because these stories are for us. Have you ever shown up for someone who wouldn't do the same for you? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear it. Click hype, and let's step into what happened next. The wedding was at Briarwood Country Club, a local venue on the west side of town. It wasn't some 5-star resort, but it was respectable. White columns at the entrance, a ballroom with tall windows, a stone patio overlooking a small lake. The kind of place that looks beautiful in photos and costs just enough to make you nervous about the bill. The air smelled like fresh cut grass and gardenias from the arrangements lining the walkway. Somewhere inside, a string quartet was warming up, and you could hear the faint hum of conversation leaking through the double doors. I arrived about 40 minutes early. That's just who I am. I wore a deep green dress, modest, elegant, nothing that would steal attention. I had a small gift tucked under my arm, a crystal picture frame I'd picked up from a boutique downtown. I thought Lila would like it. I thought she'd smile when she opened it. The check-in table was set up just inside the foyer. A young woman sat behind it with a printed guest list, a box of place cards, and a forced smile. She wasn't anyone I recognized. Lila had hired a separate wedding planner for the final stretch, someone to replace the work I'd already done. That's done quietly, but I kept walking. Hi, I'm Savannah Brooks, I said. Sister of the bride. The woman scanned her list, then scanned it again. Her eyebrows pinched together. I'm sorry, I don't see your name here. That's a mistake, I said. I'm her sister. She looked uncomfortable. Let me get someone. Before she could stand, Lila appeared from around the corner. Full bridal makeup. Hair pinned up with little pearls woven through it. Her dress was stunning. She looked like a magazine cover. But her eyes, when they landed on me, were cold. Savannah. She said my name the way you'd say a word you're tired of hearing. What are you doing here? I came for your wedding, I said slowly. What do you mean? She glanced around, checking who was watching. Then she stepped closer. The seating is really tight. We had to cut some people and, honestly, you just wouldn't fit the vibe. I blinked. The vibe. You know what I mean. She smiled, but it was sharp. You always try to control everything, and I just need today to be about me. Please don't make this weird. I hadn't controlled anything in weeks. She had cut me out of every decision. I had stepped back exactly the way she wanted, and now she was using my absence as proof that I didn't belong. Two of her bridesmaids lingered behind her, whispering to each other. A few guests near the entrance slowed down, clearly listening. I felt the heat crawl up my neck. I looked past Lila toward my parents, who were standing near the gift table. My mother was adjusting a ribbon on a centerpiece, pretending she hadn't heard anything. My father had his hands in his pockets and his eyes on the floor. Mom, I said. She didn't look up right away. When she did, her expression was tight. Pained, maybe, but not enough to act on it. Let's not make a scene, Savannah. That sentence. I had heard it 100 times growing up. It was never directed at Lila. Only at me. It meant, be quiet, absorb this, and move on so nobody has to feel uncomfortable. My father said nothing. He just shifted his weight from one foot to the other and cleared his throat. Lila tilted her head. See? Everyone agrees. Just go home and we'll talk later. You asked me to help plan this wedding, I said, keeping my voice steady. I gave you months of work. And I appreciate that, she said in a tone that made it clear she didn't. But the planning is done and the guest list is final. The groom, Derek, appeared briefly in the doorway. He looked at me, then at Lila, then back at me. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to say something. But he just pressed his lips together and walked back inside. That silence told me everything. I stood there holding my little gift in its silver wrapping paper, and I felt like I was 12 years old again, standing outside Lila's birthday party while my parents told me to wait in the kitchen so Lila could have her moment. Then I heard footsteps behind me. A man in a dark suit with a clipboard and an earpiece approached. He was the venue manager. I recognized him from the initial booking meeting months ago. He looked at the check-in table, then at me, then at Lila. Excuse me, he said. I heard the name at the table. Are you Savannah Brooks? Yes, I said. He paused, flipped a page on his clipboard, then another. His expression changed. Not dramatic, just a flicker of recognition, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. The contract holder? He asked. The air around us went very still. Lila's smile dropped. My mother finally looked up. My father stopped shifting. Yes, I said again. He looked at Lila, then back at me. Ma'am, there's something we need to discuss. Regarding the account. And that was the moment the ground started to crack beneath the perfect day my sister had built on top of me. What they didn't know, what none of them had bothered to find out, was that 6 months before the wedding, Lila's credit application for the venue had been denied. Briarwood required a deposit and a signed contract with a financially verified party. Lila couldn't qualify on her own. Derek didn't want to put his name on it. So my parents called me. Just help your sister this once, my mother had said on the phone. You know how these things work. She just needs a cosigner. I should have said no. I knew it even then. But I heard my mother's voice crack the way it always did when she needed me to do something for Lila, and I folded. I drove to the venue, sat in the manager's office, reviewed every line of that contract, and signed as the primary holder. Lila signed as secondary. She promised, swore on everything, that she would refinance the contract into her own name within 60 days. 60 days came and went. I reminded her. She said she was busy with fittings. I reminded her again. She said Derek was handling it. I asked Derek directly. He said Lila told him it was already done. Nobody had done anything. Now here's what made this worse. In the weeks before the wedding, I started getting email alerts from the venue's payment portal. Partial payments were bouncing. Scheduled installments were being declined. I called the venue's billing department. They confirmed the remaining balance was significant and still outstanding. Because I was the primary signatory, that debt was mine if it went unpaid. I didn't panic. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold beside me, and I read the contract again. Every word. There was a clause, Section 14B, that stated if the remaining balance was not settled by the date of the event, the primary signatory retained full authorization rights over the booking. That meant I could approve, delay, or cancel the event. Legally, the venue couldn't proceed without my sign-off if the bill wasn't clear. I didn't want to use that power. I want to be very clear about that. I wasn't sitting at home scheming. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was protecting myself from being stuck with a bill for a wedding I was apparently no longer welcome at. There's a difference between revenge and self-preservation, and I have never confused the two. In the days leading up to the wedding, I did a few things quietly. I emailed the venue manager and requested a written summary of the outstanding balance. He sent it within hours. I saved every text message Lila had sent me about the finances, every I'll handle it, and every stop worrying. I kept the original cosign agreement, the payment receipts for the deposits I had made from my own account early on, and the bounced payment notifications. I also covered 2 small vendor gaps that would have caused cancellations, a lighting rental and a linen service, because I didn't want anyone to suffer for Lila's carelessness. I paid those invoices from my own pocket and kept the receipts. Nobody knew. Not Lila. Not my parents. Not Derek. I had a plan they never saw coming. Not because I'm cruel. Because I'm careful. And because the girl they always underestimated had spent her entire adult life learning how to protect herself with paperwork. The night before the wedding, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. The house was quiet. Outside, I could hear crickets and the low hum of a neighbor's sprinkler. I picked up my phone and called Diane. Diane Carter is 52 years old and has been in the event industry for nearly 3 decades. She's a senior event director at one of the largest firms in the region, and she's the reason I have a career at all. When I was 24 and fresh out of college with no connections and no confidence, Diane hired me as her assistant. She taught me everything. How to negotiate with vendors who tried to overcharge. How to read a room. How to stay calm when a client was screaming in your face. But more than anything, she taught me one rule that I carry like a shield: always protect yourself on paper. Diane, I said that night, I think something's going to happen tomorrow. She listened without interrupting. That's one of her gifts. When I finished explaining everything, the bounced payments, the contract clause, Lila cutting me out, the silence from my parents, Diane let out a long breath. Savannah, she said, never let emotion override a contract. You signed that document. You hold the authority. If they try to push you out while standing on your financial back, you have every right to assert your position. Not out of spite. Out of principle. What if it makes everything worse? I asked. Worse for who? She said. You're already being treated like you don't exist. The only thing that changes tomorrow is whether you let them do it without consequence. She told me she'd keep her phone on. She told me to stay composed no matter what. She told me that the venue manager would likely side with the contract because venues always protect their paperwork. Diane had actually worked with Briarwood's ownership group years ago on a corporate gala. She knew their policies. She knew they didn't cut corners on liability. I hung up and set my alarm for 6 in the morning. I didn't sleep much. My stomach was tight. My hands felt restless against the sheets. Back at the venue, after the manager asked about the account, everything moved fast. Lila tried to wave him off. This isn't the time, she said, her voice rising just slightly, just enough to sound like a woman losing control of a situation she thought was locked down. But the manager didn't budge. He was calm, professional, and clearly uncomfortable. There are unresolved financial matters on this booking, he said. I can't proceed without addressing them. Could we speak privately? He led the four of us, me, Lila, my mother, and my father, into a small office off the main hallway. The room smelled like printer toner and leather chairs. A clock on the wall ticked loudly. The manager closed the door and laid his clipboard on the desk. The remaining balance on this event is $14,600, he said. As of this morning, it has not been settled. The primary signatory on this contract is Savannah Brooks. Lila's face went white. Not embarrassed white. Caught white. That's a technicality, she said quickly. I've been making payments. Partial payments, the manager corrected. Several of which were returned due to insufficient funds. My mother looked at Lila. For the first time in maybe my entire life, I saw doubt on her face. Not toward me. Toward Lila. You told us it was handled, my father said quietly. It is handled, Lila snapped. This is just paperwork. It's not just paperwork, I said. Everyone looked at me. I kept my voice level. No shaking. No tears. I had rehearsed this moment in my head a dozen times, not because I wanted drama, but because I knew they would try to make me feel crazy for standing my ground. The contract includes a clause, I continued. Section 14b. If the balance is unresolved on the event date, the primary signatory, that's me, retains full authorization rights. The venue can't proceed without my approval. Lila stared at me. You'd shut down my wedding? I looked at her, and for a second, I saw the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. But that girl was gone. She'd been gone for years. No, I said. You did that when you removed me. My mother started to speak, something that began with Savannah, please, but I held up my hand. Not aggressively. Just firmly. And she stopped. That had never happened before. I pulled out my phone and dialed Diane. She answered on the first ring. I put her on speaker. This is Diane Carter, she said. Her voice filled the small room like authority itself. I'm a senior event director and legal advisor to Ms. Brooks. I can confirm that under the terms of the signed venue agreement, the primary signatory holds decisive rights over event authorization when the balance remains outstanding. This is standard in contractual event law. The venue is within its rights and obligation to defer to Ms. Brooks. The manager nodded slowly. That aligns with our policy. Lila looked at the manager. Then at our parents. Then at me. Her chin trembled. You planned this. No, I said. I prepared for this. There's a difference. The door opened slightly. Derek stood in the frame. He looked at Lila. What's going on? The guests are asking why there's a delay. Lila didn't answer. My mother didn't answer. So I did. There's an unpaid balance on the venue, I said. Lila told everyone it was covered. It wasn't. Derek looked at Lila. You told me your parents paid it off. My father's head snapped toward Lila. We gave you $8,000 for this. I used it for other things, Lila whispered. The dress. The honeymoon deposit. I was going to figure it out. The room was silent except for that clock. Tick. 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 I spoke clearly. I will authorize the event to proceed under 3 conditions. First, my name is acknowledged publicly as the co-signer who made this event possible. Second, Lila and Derek sign an agreement for immediate repayment of the full outstanding balance. Third, I receive a written release from all financial liability tied to this contract, effective today. Lila's mouth opened. Nothing came out. My mother looked at my father. He rubbed his face with both hands. Those are reasonable terms, the venue manager said. Diane's voice came through the phone. I can have the documents drafted and sent within 10 minutes. Nobody argued. There was nothing to argue. The contract was clear. The math was clear. And for once, I was the one holding the pen. Lila signed. Derek signed. My parents witnessed. The manager filed the paperwork. I stood up, straightened my dress, and walked toward the door. Before I left, I turned back. Lila was sitting with her hands in her lap, staring at the table. You said I wasn't on the list, I said quietly. Turns out, I was the list. Nobody responded. I didn't need them to. The wedding continued. I know this because I could hear the music start as I walked through the parking lot. The string quartet played something soft and romantic, and the sound carried across the stone patio and over the lake. It was beautiful. But it wasn't for me. It was never supposed to be. I didn't stay for the ceremony. I didn't want to. For the first time, leaving wasn't an act of defeat. It was a choice. I got in my car, set the signed release document on the passenger seat, and sat there for a moment with the engine off. The air smelled like gardenias and warm asphalt. My hands were steady. Over the next 2 weeks, the repayment came through in full. Derek handled it. I suspect he was angrier at Lila than he let on that day. My parents sent a message that said, "We're sorry things got so complicated." That was it. No accountability. No reflection. Just a passive sentence that made it sound like the complication had fallen from the sky instead of being built brick by people who should have loved me better. Lila texted me once. "You embarrass me in front of everyone." I read it. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to explain to someone who still believed she was the victim. I sat with that silence for a while, and something surprising happened. I felt lighter. Not happy exactly, but unburdened. For the first time in my life, I hadn't swallowed my voice to keep someone else comfortable. I had set a boundary, and the world didn't end. My family didn't crumble. They just had to deal with the version of me that refused to disappear. I started putting more energy into my own work after that. I took on new clients. I began building a reputation not just as someone who coordinates events, but as someone who runs them. Diane offered me a partnership opportunity. I said yes. For the first time, I wasn't the extra. I was the decision maker. And I wasn't going back. If you've ever been uninvited, overlooked, or pushed aside just to keep someone else comfortable, I want you to hear me. You are not difficult for having standards. You are not dramatic for expecting to be treated with basic respect. And you are not wrong for standing up when every voice around you is telling you to sit down. Have you ever been excluded by the people who were supposed to include you first? I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. This space is for you. It's for every person who's been made to feel like they're too much when the truth is, they were always enough. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean you're looking for revenge. It means you've decided that your peace matters more than their comfort. And that's not cruelty. That's self-respect. Subscribe if you want to be part of a community that sees you, even when the people closest to you won't. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. Did this story hit home? If it did, leave a like so more people can find it. Tell me in the comments what part stayed with you. Was it the moment at the check-in table? The contract clause? That final line before she walked out? Whatever it was, I want to know. Click hype to help this story find others who've felt the same way. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of something real. This community grows because of you, and every single voice in these comments matters. I'll see you in the next one.